Oh, good. The nature is still working. You guys can hear the nature, right? The second I said hi, my cat was like, "Meow. Mix it up, Doko." You're right. Oh God, I forgot. I was wondering why the lurk thing was being. Thank you, PG. You're my hero. They kill Squirrelpaw off screen. I think they would have to kill Squirrelpaw on screen. Not saying that happens or not, but if it did happen, it would have to be on screen because I mean, like, you know, like Leafpaw would need to like experience it. Maybe like Firestar, Brambleclaw, you know. Okay, Mix It Up is alive and well. I knew I was forgetting one more thing. Hello, everybody! Today we're starting Moonrise, the second book, as you can see in the corner here. The second book of the second series. Before we begin today, do I have things to tell you? I guess I do. Wait, do I? I do! Okay, so for the next few streams I actually have planned out. They're all collabs. I'm sorry if you're not a fan of collabs. I'd really love collabs, but I know sometimes people just want to see like the streamer. Too bad. I was moving my journal. Okay, so Friday we have a stream with somebody special. I don't know if they announced it or not. I don't think they did because I feel like I would have been tagged in it. So that's still gonna be a secret from me, from my end. That's gonna be, oh gosh, what time is it? I feel like it's gonna be like at 6 or 7 p.m. my time. So I think it's gonna start the usual time that I finish streams, I think. It probably won't be too long. It'll be very cute though. It'll be a fun stream. On Saturday, we have a stream with Dun. I don't know how we're gonna set it up exactly yet. I'm gonna play FNAF 4, I think. I think it's the one where it's like it's not in the pizza parlor. What is it? The pizza parlor? The kids' entertainment one? The house one! Yeah. The one where you're like a kid in bed. He wants me to play that one. I don't know how we're gonna set it up, like he'll be on call with me, but I don't know how it's gonna. We'll see. That one will probably be at my normal time. And then Monday I have a stream with Cordy and Peachy and 2 other people? 3 other people. 2 other people. Yes, 2 other people. I can't remember their names off the top of my head because I've never spoken to them before in my entire life. But we're gonna do a Dead by Daylight collab on Monday. That's gonna be either 3 p.m. or 4 p.m. my time. I can't remember. But that'll be fun. It's my first time playing. I think it's Peachy's first time. As long as you're having fun, I'm having fun. That's how I see the world, too. That's me in, like, every single relationship that I'm in, I think. Like, any kind of friendship, I'm, like... I like to see the other person happy. Unless it was that ex-friend of mine. Then I didn't like to see her happy. I was pretty, force-fed her happiness. Haha, PG noob! No, don't cry! And then... So that's on Monday, and then we'll have Warrior Cat Wednesday as usual. I don't know if me and Dun have anything else planned. There is another stream with someone else that might happen. We haven't decided yet because originally we were gonna have a stream. Cry, little baby. We're gonna have a stream on next Saturday, which is the 26th, but Mist is graduating, and so I will be an absolute wreck. So, 100 points. You're almost there. You're almost there to the VIP. So I probably won't stream on Saturday. If I do stream on Saturday, it would be with Dun, but I don't know what we would do. I would be crying. I'll be crying live, probably. And then I have a stream with Bunny potentially planned next week. No, it can't be on Friday. So if it's not on Saturday, it would have to be either next Monday, which is, what day is that? The 28th? The Day of Reckoning. 125 consecutive instances of really bully Nono. Oh my god. So either we'll have a bunny collab on the 28th or the 2nd of September. I'm not sure. Well, I still have to talk to her about it. Speaking of the Day of Reckoning, so yeah, that's the. It's off for war. You can. You can't smack me. So, yeah, the rest of the month is kind of pretty much planned out, sort of. Most of it is collabs. Some of them are, I'm just not gonna be there because I'll be crying. Drago, hi! Thank you for the raid! Minecraft! Were you in the bunny? Wait, are you? I don't know where. Ha! It was bunny. It was bunny. I knew it. Were you in the bunny Minecraft server? Oh, is she speaking of it? Nice! Cute. SMP. My hands! So that's the schedule plan. There's some exciting things hopefully gonna start happening. Hi Cordy! Bullying the bunny. It happens. It happens. Well, some exciting things next month. But then there's also going to be a big change in October, because in October I'm probably going to be moving out. So I'll probably not be streaming as frequently. Yeah, either at the beginning of October, probably closer to the end of October. But yeah. Moving to a new abode? Yeah, a new abode. So I'm kind of nervous because it'll be like the first time that I'm leaving the nest, as they say. So yeah. Hopefully at the kind of like hiatus won't last very long. I'll figure how to like wrestle things, hopefully. But yeah, that's still like a month away. A month and a half away. So we have a little time left. I have to start like packing, and I'm not sure how to start packing. Like what do you first start packing when you're moving? I guess like accessory type things? I guess I could pack my stuffed animals. Like, start packing immediately. I think so. I think I'll have to, and then I'll just live with boxes. Except then my room will be really echoey, so I have to fix that when I'm streaming. Pack everything at once? Oh. And then just not have anything for the next month. If you put it off, it'll be super stressful. Yeah, I'm thinking I'll definitely start packing in advance. Thank you for the hard pads! Yeah, like slowly start packing. It'll be good because I'll also be cleaning at the same time, technically. Which is nice. Alright. That was a nice future status update. Right now, we have warrior cats. So I'm gonna start, I think. Right? Yeah, I'll start. So we're starting the second book today. I won't go into what happened in the first book because they'll definitely cover it in the second book because it's the beginning and they like to recap. Right, everybody, get comfortable. Get comfortable. Prologue. Can you hear me okay, by the way? Should I move this closer? Maybe. I'll move it a little closer. All right. Prologue. One by one, the cats crept into the cave. Their fur was streaked with mud and their eyes stretched wide with fear, reflecting the cold moonlight that filtered through a crack in the roof. They crouched low with their bellies close to the ground, their gazes flickering from side to side as if they expected to see danger lurking in the shadows. The glimmer of moonlight was caught in pools of water on the cave floor. It lit up a forest of pointed stones, some rising from the ground and others hanging from the cave roof. Some of the stones joined in the middle to form slender trees of gleaming white rock. Wind gusted around. Okay. The prologue is gonna be bumpy ride. I always have to remind myself how to read first whenever I do these streams. Okay. Wind gusted through them, ruffling the cat's fur. The air smelled damp and clean, and was filled with the distant roar of falling water. A cat stepped out from behind one of the pointed stones. He was long-bodied, with lean, muscular limbs, and his pelt was completely covered in mud that had dried into spikes, so that he looked like a cat carved in stone. "Welcome," he meowed in a rasping voice. "Moonlight lies on the river. It's time for a telling, according to the laws of the tribe of endless hunting." One of the cats crept forward, dipping his head to the mud-covered calf. "Stone Teller, have you got a sign? Has the tribe of endless hunting spoken to you?" Another cat spoke from behind him. "Is there hope at last?" Stone Teller bowed his head. "I have seen the words of the tribe of endless hunting, in the pattern of moonlight on a rock, in the shadows cast by stones, in the sounds of raindrops as they fall from the roof." He paused, letting his gaze sweep over the cats around him. "Yes," he went on, "they have told me there is hope." A faint murmur, like the rustle of leaves in the wind, passed through the group of cats. Their eyes seemed to grow brighter, and their ears pricked. The one who had come forward first mewed hesitantly. "Then you know what will rid us of this dreadful danger?" "Yes, Craig." Craig. Sorry. Stone Teller wrote. This cat's name is Craig next to Stone Teller. I think it's supposed to be like some sort of rock lingo, but it just reads as Craig. "The tribe of endless hunting." Crag. Yeah, Crag. Crag? Craig? Crag. I'm pretty sure it's Crag. Argo Crag. But I'm gonna call him Craig, because I think that's funnier. "The tribe of endless hunting has promised me that a cat will come. A silver cat not from this tribe. will rid us of Sharptooth once and for all. There was a pause. Then, are there other cats not in the tribe of Rushing Water? A voice asked from the back of the group. There must be, another cat replied. I have heard tell of strangers, meowed Craig. Though I have seen none here in our lifetime. But when will the silver cat come? He added desperately, and other mews rose from all around him. Yes, when? Is it really true? Stoneteller signaled for silence with a twitch of his tail. Yes, it is true, he meowed. The tribe of Endless Hunting have never lied to us. I have seen the sheen of silver fur myself, in a moonlit pool. But when? Craig persisted. The tribe of Endless Hunting has not shown that to me, Stoneteller replied. I do not know when the silver cat will come, or from where, but we will know when he arrives. He raised his head toward the cave roof, and his eyes shone like two tiny moons. Until then, cats of my tribe, we can only wait. Hi, Meg! Magnus. Ahoy! I'm purposely saying Craig. I like to say Craig. He's Craig to me now. I'm good! Reading Warrior Cats today, so I'm not very chatty, only between chapters. I think it's so cool that there are cats that don't know other cats exist. I think it's so funny. Like, what? We're not the only cats in the world? Like, they just have no idea how big the world is, right? You came back from playing with your cat. Aw, cute. Like, they have no... They just can't... Oh, you beat your toe. My cat does that to my ankles. When I'm walking upstairs, she bites my ankles. They just don't know how far the world is. My cat's orange. Okay. Chapter 1. Oh! We have a different POV! Orange cat's up to no good. Okay, so we're in a different POV this book. Stormfur opened his eyes, blinking away sleep, and struggled to remember where he was. Instead of his nest of reeds in the RiverClan camp, he was lying curled in dry, crunchy bracken. Above his head was the earth roof of a cave, crisscrossed with tangled roots. He could hear a rhythmic roaring sound faintly in the distance. At first it puzzled him. Then he remembered how close they were to the sun-drowned water, washing endlessly onto the edge of the land. He flinched as a vision blurred into his mind, of how he and Brambleclaw had struggled in the water for their lives. He spat, still tasting the salty tang at the back of his throat. At home in RiverClan, he was used to water. His was the only clan who could swim comfortably in the river that ran through the forest. But not this surging, salty, pushing and pulling water, too strong to even for a RiverClan cat to swim in safely. Other memories came rushing back. StarClan had sent cats from each of the 4 clans on a long, dangerous journey to hear what Midnight had to tell them. They had fought their way across unknown country, through 2-leg nests, facing attacks from dogs and rats, to make the last incredible discovery that Midnight was a badger. Stormfur felt ice creeping along his limbs as he recalled Midnight's dreadful message. 2-legs were destroying the forest to make a new thunder path. All the clans would have to leave, and it was the task of StarClan's chosen cats to warn them and lead them to a new home. Stormfur sat up and looked around the cave. Faint light filtered down through the tunnel that led out into the cliff top, along with a gentle current of fresh air that carried the scent of salt water. Midnight the badger was nowhere to be seen. Close beside Stormfur, his sister, Feathertail, was sleeping, her tail curled over her nose. Just beyond her was Tawnypelt, the fierce ShadowClan warrior. Stormfur was relieved to see that she was resting quietly, as if the rat bite she had suffered in the 2-leg place was troubling her less. Midnight's store of herbs had yielded something to soothe the infection and help her sleep. On the opposite side of the cave, a little way apart, was the Wind Clan apprentice Crowpaw, his dark gray pelt barely visible among the fronds of bracken. Nearest the cave entrance, Tawny Pelt's brother, Brambleclaw, was stretched out beside Squirrelpaw, who slept in a tight ball. Stormfur felt a stab of jealousy at the sight of the two ThunderClan cats close together, and tried to push it away. He had no right to admire Squirrelpaw and her courage and bright optimism, as much as he did, when they came from different clans. Oh, someone's got a crush! Brambleclaw would make her a much better mate. He does. Holy. Stormfur knew that he ought to rouse his companions so that they could begin their long journey back to the forest. Yet he was strangely reluctant. Let them sleep a little longer, he thought. We'll need all our strength for what lies ahead. Shaking scrapes of bracken from his pelt, he picked his way across the sandy floor of the cave and out through the tunnel. A stiff breeze ruffled his fur as he emerged into the springy grass. He was dry at last, after his near drowning the night before, and sleep had refreshened him. He stood gazing around him. Just ahead was the edge of the cliff, and beyond it lay an endless stretch of shimmering water, reflecting the pale light of dawn. Stormfur opened his jaws to drink in the air and catch the scent of prey. Instead, his senses were flooded by a strong reek of badger. He caught sight of Midnight sitting on the highest point of the cliff, her small bright eyes fixed on the fading stars. In the sky behind her, on the far side of the moorland, a strip of creamy light showed where the sun would rise. Stormfur padded over, dipping his head respectfully before sitting beside her. "Good morning, Grey Warrior." Midnight's voice rumbled in welcome. "Sleep you have enough?" "Yes." How did I do his voice? "Yes." No, he wasn't gruff. "Yes, thanks, Midnight." Stormfur still found it strange to be exchanging friendly greetings with her, when badgers had always been deadly enemies to the warrior clans. Yet Midnight was no ordinary badger. She seemed closer to StarClan than any warrior, except perhaps the medicine cats. She had traveled far and somehow had found the wisdom to foretell the future. Stormfur gave her a sidelong glance, to see her eyes still fixed on the remaining stars in the dawn sky. "Can you really read the signs from StarClan?" he asked curiously, half hoping that her terrible predictions from the night before would vanish in the light of morning. "Much is to be ready everywhere," the badger replied. "In stars, in running water, in flash of light on waves. Whole worlds speak, if ears are open to listen." "I must be deaf then," Stormfur meowed. "The future seems dark to me." "Not so, Grey Warrior," rasped Midnight. "See?" She pointed with her snout across the sun-drowned water to where a single warrior of StarClan still shone brightly above the horizon. "StarClan has seen our meeting. Pleased they are, and help they will give in dark days coming." Stormfur gazed up at the brilliant point of light and let out a faint sigh. He was no medicine cat, accustomed to sharing tongues with their warrior ancestors. His task was to offer his strength and skill in the service of his clan, and now, it seemed, of all the forest cats. Midnight had made it clear that each and every clan would be destroyed if they could not ignore the ancient boundaries and work together for once. "Midnight, when we go home..." His question was never finished. A yowl interrupted him, and he turned to see Squirrelpaw burst out of the tunnel that led into the badger set. She stood in the entrance, her dark ginger fur fluffed up and her ears pricked. "I'm starving," she announced. "Where's the prey around here?" Budge up and let the rest of us come out." Crowpaw's... Oh no, he was more high-pitched. "Budge up and let the rest of us come out." Crowpaw's irritable voice sounded behind her. "Then we might be able to tell you." Squirrelpaw bounced forward a few paces, and the Wind Clan apprentice emerged, followed closely by Feathertail. She stretched with the pleasure in the sunlight. Stormfur got up and bounded over the tough moorland grass so he could touch noses with his sister. He had not been one of StarClan's original chosen cats, but he had insisted on coming on the journey to protect Feathertail. With their mother dead and their father living in a different clan, the two cats were much closer than ordinary siblings. Midnight lumbered after him and nodded in a greeting to the cats. "Tawny Pelt's much better this morning," Feathertail reported. "She says her shoulder hardly hurts anymore." To Midnight she added, "That burdock root that you gave her really helped." "Root is good," the badger rumbled. "Now, injured warrior, travel well." As she spoke, Tawny Pelt herself appeared from the tunnel. Stormfur was relieved to see that she looked stronger after her long sleep and was scarcely limping at all. Following Tawny Pelt, her brother Brambleclaw pushed his way out of the tunnel and stood blinking in the glowing light. "The sun's nearly up," he meowed. "It's time we were on our way." "But we have to eat first," Squirrelpaw wailed. "My belly's growing louder than a monster on the Thunderpath. I could eat a fox, fur and all." Stormfur had to agree with her. Hunger clawed at his own belly, and he knew that without food he would not be able to face the long and exhausting journey back to the forest. Yet he shared Brambleclaw's urgency. How would they feel if they delayed too long, and then discovered cats had died because of it? A look of exasperation flitted over Brambleclaw's face. His voice was firm as he replied, "We'll pick up some prey as we go, and once we get back to the woods where we made camp, we'll have a proper hunt." "Bossy furball," Squirrelpaw muttered. "Brambleclaw's right," Tawny Pelt meowed. "Who knows what's happening at home? There's no time to waste." A murmur of agreement rose from the other cats. Even Crowpaw, who usually challenged Brambleclaw's decisions even more than Squirrelpaw, had nothing to say. With a slight shock, Stormfur realized that their long journey and the threat to all their clans had changed them from a group of squabbling rivals to a unified force with a single purpose: to save their clanmates in the warrior cove that had protected them for so long. A warm feeling of belonging swept over Stormfur. His loyalty towards RiverClan was complicated, knowing how their half-clan heritage made other warriors suspicious of him and Feathertail. But here he knew he had found friends who judged him without thinking about clan differences all the time. Brambleclaw paced forward until he stood in front of Midnight. "The thanks of all the clans go with you," he mewed. Midnight grunted. "Time is not yet for farewell. I come with you as far as woods, to make sure you know right path." Without waiting for the cats to agree or thank her, she lumbered off across the moor. Ahead of her, the sky had become too bright to look at as the sun began to edge its way above the horizon. Stormfur blinked gratefully at the yellow light. The sun setting had guided them on the journey to find the sun-drowned place. Now the rising sun would guide them home. The four chosen cats, along with Stormfur and Squirrelpaw, who had come with Brambleclaw after an argument with her father, Firestar, had set out from the forest, blindly following a half-understood prophecy from StarClan. Now that they had discovered what the prophecy meant, it was easier to decide what to do next, and at the same time, it was terrifying to know just how much danger their clans were in. "Well, what are we waiting for?" Squirrelpaw asked, dashing off to overtake Midnight. Her clanmate Brambleclaw followed more slowly, looking deep in thought, as if he were imagining all the difficulties that they would have to face on their way back from the forest. Back to the forest. At his side, Tawny Pelt seemed refreshed from her night's rest, and even though she was still limping, her eyes showed nothing but determination to make the long journey home. Feathertail trotted with her tail up, clearly enjoying the bright morning, while Crowpaw lopped along beside her, keeping his ears pricked and his muscles tense, as if he were already anticipating trouble. Stormfur, bringing up the rear, breathed a swift prayer to StarClan: "Guide our paws and bring us all safely home." As the sun climbed higher, the sky became a deep, clear blue, dotted with fluffy scrapes of cloud. The weather was warm and kind for so late in leaf fall. A breeze swept over the grass, and Stormfur's mouth watered as he caught the scent of rabbit. Out of the corner of his eye, he spotted a white tail bobbing as the rabbit vanished over the crest of a gentle slope. Instantly, Crowpaw darted after it. "Wait! Where are you going?" Brambleclaw called after him, but the WindClan apprentice was gone. The tabby warrior lashed his tail irritably. "Does he ever listen?" "He won't be long," Feathertail soothed him. "You could hardly expect him to ignore a rabbit when it pops up right under our noses." Brambleclaw's only reply was another swish of his tail. "I'll fetch him back," Stormfur meowed, bunching his muscles to spring in pursuit. Before he could move, the dark gray apprentice reappeared at the top of the rise. He was dragging the rabbit with him. It was almost as big as he was. "Here," he meowed ungraciously as he dumped it on the ground. "That didn't take long, did it? Suppose we're allowed to stop and eat?" "Of course," Brambleclaw replied. "Sorry, Crowpaw. I'd forgotten how fast WindClan cats can be. This moorland must feel like home to you." Crowpaw acknowledged the apology with a curt nod as all 6 cats crowded around the fresh kill. Stormfur stopped short when he noticed a glow of admiration in Feathertail's eyes. "Surely Surely his sister couldn't be interested in Crowpaw. All he ever did was argue and push himself forward as he were already a warrior. A cat from another clan, and an apprentice at that, had no right to start patting after Feathertail. And whatever did Feathertail see in him? Didn't she know the problems of this sort of thing causes? Hadn't she learned anything from their own parents? Then Stormfur's gaze slid across to Squirrelpaw. Had he any right to criticize Feathertail when he liked Squirrelpaw so much? But then he told himself any cat would like the brave, intelligent ThunderClan apprentice, and he knew better than to start something with a cat from another clan when they couldn't possibly have a future together. Stormfur sighed as he began gulping down his share of the rabbit. He hoped he was imagining things. After all, any cat might admire Crowpaw's speed in catching them prey when they were all hungry. Surely that was all Feathertail was feeling. While the cats ate, Midnight waited a few paces away. Stormfur saw her tearing at the moorland grass with her strong, blunt claws, snuffling up grubs and beetles she disturbed. Her eyes were screwed up, as if she found it hard to search for food in the strong sunlight. But she said nothing, and as soon as the cats had eaten all they could of Crowpaw's prey, she set off once more towards the rising sun. Even with Midnight to lead them by the most direct route, it was sun-high by the time they reached the crest of a gentle hill and saw the edge of the woods in front of them. The shade underneath the trees looked as inviting as running into water to Stormfur after traveling through the heat of the unprotected moorland. For one brief moment, he let himself imagine an afternoon of hunting, then settling down, fully fed, for a sleep under the arching fronge of bracken, but he knew there was no chance of that. As he drew closer to the woods, he spotted what looked like a heap of malted brown fur in the long grass underneath a bush. His tail twitched in rueful recognition at the sight of the elderly tabby who had guided them, and nearly lost them forever in the two-leg place. "Hey, Purdy!" Brambleclaw called. "We're back!" A large round head emerged from the bundle of fur, whiskers twitching and eyes blinking in confusion that gradually turned to welcome. The old cat scrambled to his paws and took a couple faces towards them, shaking bits of dead leaf from his untidied pelt. "Great Starkland!" he exclaimed. "I never reckoned I'd see you again." Suddenly he broke off, his eyes fixed on something over Stormfur's shoulder. "Don't move a whisker," he hissed. "There's a badger right behind you. Just let me deal with it. I know a few fighting moves that—" "It's okay, Purdy," Stormfur interrupted, while Squirrelpaw's tail curled up with amusement. "This is Midnight. She's a friend." The old tabby stared at Stormfur with his jaws gaping in astonishment. "A friend? You don't make friends with a badger, young fella. You can't trust him a single mouse length." Stormfur gave Midnight an anxious look, wondering if the badger was offended by Purdy's words. To his relief, she looked as amused as Squirrelpaw, her tiny black eyes gleaming. "Come and meet Purdy," Stormfur mewed to her. "He guided us through the two-leg place." Midnight plodded forward until she stood in front of the old tabby Tom. Unconvinced, Purdy crouched down with his neck fur bristling and his lips drawn back into a snarl to reveal snaggled teeth. Stormfur felt a twinge of admiration for his courage, even though the badger could have flattened him with one swat of her powerful front paws. "Here is no fight," Midnight assured him. "Friend of my friend is also my friend. Much of you they have told me." Purdy's eyes twitched. "Can't say I'm pleased to meet you," he muttered, "but I suppose you must be all right if they say so." Backing away, he turned to Brambleclaw. "Why are we hanging around here?" he demanded. "There are upwalkers and dogs all over the place. Say goodbye and let's be on our way." "Hang on!" Squirrelpaw protested loudly to Brambleclaw. "You said we could hunt." "We can," he mewed. He paused to taste the air. Stormfur did the same, and was relieved to find that although he could distinguish several different dog scents, they were all stale. He guessed that Purdy was using the danger of dogs as an excuse to get away from Midnight. "Okay," Brambleclaw went on. "Let's split up and hunt quick. We'll meet at the place where we camped last time. Tawnypelt, do you want to go straight there?" The ShadowClan warrior's eyes flashed as she replied, "No. I can hunt as well as any of you." Before any of the cats could respond, Midnight padded up to her and gave her a gentle nudge. "Foolish warrior," she rumbled. "Rest while able. Show me camping place. I will stay while sun is high. Go home in dark." Tawnypelt shrugged. "Okay, Midnight." She headed further into the woods, following the stream to the hollow where the cats had rested on the outward journey. The air was cooler in the dappled shade of the trees. Stormfur began to relax, feeling safer here than on the open moorland. Though the chattering stream, too shallow for fish, was no substitute for the river he loved. A pang of loss stabbed through him as he thought that, even if they saw the river again, it would not be for long. Midnight had told them that the clans would have to leave the forest as soon as the 6 cats returned. A rustle in the undergrowth reminded him of how hungry he was. It would be good to go off for a while and hunt with Feathertail, just as they did at home. But when he swung around to speak to his sister, he saw that Crowpaw was saying something in her ear. "Do you want to hunt with me?" The apprentice muttered, sounding half grudgingly, half embarrassed. "We'd do better together." "That would be great." Feathertail's eyes shone. Then she spotted Stormfur and looked even more embarrassed than the WindClan cat. Why don't we all hunt together?" Crowpaw looked away, and Stormfur felt the hairs on his neck begin to prickle. What right did this apprentice have to invite Feathertail on as his hunting partner? "No, I'm fine on my own," Stormfur retorted, spinning around and plunging into the undergrowth, trying to pretend that he hadn't seen the hurt in his sister's blue eyes. But once he slipped beneath the lowest branch of the bushes, his irritation faded. His ears pricked up and all his senses were alert in hunt for prey. Before long, he spotted a mouse scrambling among the fallen leaves and dispatched it with one swift blow. Satisfied, he scraped earth over the little brown body until he was ready to collect it, and looked around for more. Soon he added a squirrel and another mouse to his hoard, which was as much as he could carry, and set off for the meeting place. On the way, he began to wonder how Feathertail was getting along, asking himself if he should have stayed with her after all. He was not one of StarClan's chosen cats. He had come on this mission especially to look after his sister. He had been wrong to abandon her in this strange place, just because Crowpaw had annoyed him. What would he do if something happened to her? When he reached the camping place, he saw Tawny Pelt stretched out in the shade of a hawthorn bush, her tortoise-shell fur hardly visible in the dappled sunlight. Midnight was beside her, dozing, and there was more chewed-up bird rock root laid on Tawny Pelt's injured shoulder. The badger must have found some growing by the stream. Brambleclaw was perched above Tawny Pelt on a steeply arching tree root, obviously keeping watch, while Feathertail and Crowpaw shared a squirrel just below. As Stormfur dropped his catch on the small pile of fresh killed in the center of the hollow, Squirrelpaw appeared at the top of the slope, dragging a rabbit, and Purdy followed with a couple of mice in his jaw. "Good, we're all here," meowed Brambleclaw. "Let's eat, and then we'll get moving." He leaped down into the hollow and chose a starling from the pile. Stormfur took one of his mice over to Feathertail, settling down next to her on the opposite side from Crowpaw. "Good hunting?" he asked. Feathertail blinked at him. "Brilliant, thanks. There's so much prey here. It's a pity we can't stay longer." Stormfur was tempted to agree, but he knew that the danger in their home was too desperate for them to delay. He began to devour his mouth in famished gulps, his paws already itching for the next stage of their journey. He had swallowed the last of the fresh kill and was beginning to groom his thick gray pelt when he heard a low snarling behind him. He saw Brambleclaw raise his head, alarm flaring in his yellow eyes. Stormfur whipped around to see what had spooked the ThunderClan warrior. Familiar scent hit his scent glands heartbeat or two before 2 slender, tawny shapes emerged from the break-in beside the stream. Foxes! Oh snap, Squirrelpaw called that. That's called foreshadowing, my friends! Chapter 2. Leafpaw wrinkled her nose at the foul scent and tried not to hiss in disgust. Shaking her head, she parted Sorreltail's tortoise-shell fur with one paw and dabbed a wad of bile-soaked moss on the tick clinging to her shoulder. Sorreltail wiggled as she felt the bile soak through her fur. "That's better," she meowed. "Has it gone yet?" Leafpaw opened her mouth and dropped the twig that held the moss. "Give it time." I have like Leafpaw and Feathertail the same type of voice, but like slightly different, and I can't remember which one is which. Give it time. Okay, I'll do that one. There's only one good thing about ticks, Sorreltail mewed. They hate mouse bile just as much as we do. Springing to her paws, she gave herself a vigorous shake and flicked the tick off her shoulder. There! Thanks, Leafpaw! A breeze rustled through the trees that surrounded the medicine cat's den. A few leaves drifted down. There was a chill in the morning air that warned Leafpaw of how few moons were left before Leaf Bear. This time there would be more than the cold and shortage of prey to face. Leafpaw closed her eyes and shuddered as she remembered what she had seen the day before on patrol with her father, Firestar. The biggest monsters the cats had ever seen had been forging a dreadful path through the forest, scoring deep ruts into the earth and tearing up trees by their roots. The huge, shiny monster had rolled inexorably through the break-in, roaring and belching smoke while the cats scattered helplessly before it. For the first time, Leafpaw began to understand the danger to the forest, which had been prophesied twice now, once in Brambleclaw's dream, and then that had sent him on the journey with Squirrelpaw, and once in Cinderpelt's vision of fire and tiger. The doom that had been foretold was coming upon the forest, and Leafpaw did not know what any cat could do to stop it. Are you okay, Leafpaw? Meowed Sorreltail. Leafpaw blinked. The vision of smoke, splintered trees, and shrieking cats faded away, to be replaced by soft green ferns and smooth gray rock where Cinderpelt made her den. She was safe. ThunderClan was still here. But for how long? Yes, I'm fine, she replied. Firestar had ordered the patrol to keep quiet about what they had seen until he had decided how to break the news to the clan. I've got to go and wash this mouse bile off my paws. I'll come with you, Sorreltail offered. Then we could go along the ravine and pick up some fresh kill. Leafpaw led the way into the main clearing. Whitepaw and Shrewpaw were scuffling outside the apprentice den in warm shafts of early morning sunlight, while Cloud's 3 kits watched them with huge, admiring eyes. Their mother sat at the entrance of the nursery, washing herself while keeping one eye on her litter. The Dawn Patrol, Dustpelt, Mousefur, and Spiderpaw were just pushing their way into the clearing, through the gorse tunnel. Dustpelt's eyes narrowed with pleasure as he caught sight of Ferncloud and his kits. Leafpaw gazed at the busy, peaceful camp and could hardly keep back a wail of despair. As soon as the apprentices spotted Leafpaw, they stopped their practice fighting and stared at her, then started whispering urgently together. Even the cats in the returning patrol gave her an uneasy look as they padded over to the fresh kill pile. Leafpaw knew that rumors about yesterday's patrol were starting to fly around camp. At daybreak, Firestar had called his deputy, Graystripe, Leafpaw's mother, Sandstorm, and Cinderpelt into a meeting in his den, and every cat had begun to suspect that something unusual had happened the day before. Before she and Sorreltail could reach the gorse tunnel, Firestar appeared from his den at the foot of the high rock. Graystripe and Sandstorm followed him into the clearing, and with Cinderpelt limping after them. Firestar leaped onto the rock, leaving the other 3 cats to find comfortable places to sit at its base. In the slanting leaf-fall sun, his flame-colored pelt blazed like the fire that gave him his name. Let all cats old enough to catch their own prey join here beneath the high rock for a clan meeting, he called. Leafpaw felt her belly lurch as Sorreltail nudged her gently towards the front of the gathering cats. You know what he's gonna say, don't you? The tortoiseshell warrior murmured. Leafpaw nodded bleakly. I knew something weird happened yesterday, Sorreltail went on. You all came back looking as if the whole Shadow Clan were clawing your tails. I wish it were just that, Leafpaw muttered. Cats of ThunderClan, Firestar began, then paused to take a breath. I don't know if any clan leader has ever had to take his clan into the darkness I see ahead. His voice faltered and his eyes met Sandstorm's, seeming to draw strength from the she-cat's steady gaze. Some time ago, Ravenpaw warned me about more two-leg activity on the Thunder Path. Back then, I didn't think it was important, and there was nothing we could do anyway because that's not our territory. But yesterday, a tense silence had fallen into the clearing. Firestar did not often sound so serious. Leafpaw could see how reluctant he was to go on, how he had to force himself to speak. My patrol was not far from Snake Rocks when we saw a two-legged monster leave the Thunder Path. It tore into the earth and pushed trees over. That's ridiculous, Sootfur interrupted. Monsters never leave the Thunder Path. This is just another of his dreams, isn't it? Dustpelt's question was too low for Firestar to hear, the Leafpaw caught him muttering words. Tough bit of fresh kill too late at night? Shut up and listen, Cloudtail. Firestar's kin glared at Dustbelt. I saw it too, Graystripe confirmed from his place at the foot of the rock. Dead silence followed his words. Leafpaw watched the cats glance to one another with uncertainty and fear in their eyes. Soratail turned to Leafpaw. Is that really what you saw? Leafpaw nodded. Can't imagine what it was like. What does Cinderpelt have to say? Speckletail called from where she sat among the... Oh, sorry, it's an old person. What does Cinderpelt have to say? Squirreltail called from the side among the elders. Has StarClan shown you anything? The medicine cat rose to her paws and faced the clan, her blue eyes steady. Of all the cats, even Firestar, she seemed the calmest. Before she replied, she looked up to meet Firestar's gaze. Leafpaw could almost see flashing between them the memory of the prophecy of fire and tiger that Cinderpelt had seen in a clump of blazing bracken. She wondered how they had decided to tell the clan in the meeting that had just ended. Then Firestar nodded, as if he was giving Cinderpelt permission to speak. She acknowledged his signal with a brief tip of her head. The signs from StarClan are not clear, she admitted. I see a time of great danger and change of the forest. A terrible doom hangs over us all. Then you've had warnings about this? Why haven't you told us before? Mousefur challenged with a lash of her tail. Don't be mouse-brained, Cloudtail growled. What good would it have done? What could we do? Leave the forest and go where? Wandering around in strange country with Leaf Bear coming? You might fancy that, Mousefur, but I don't. But if you ask me, Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw had the right idea, Sootfur muttered to his brother Rainwhisker, getting out when they did. Leafpaw wanted to leap at the missing cat's defense, but she made herself sit still and keep quiet. She was the only cat in the clan who knew that Squirrelpaw and Brambleclaw had left on a mission from StarClan to try and save the forest from this terrible danger. Stormfur and Feathertail, Graystripe's River Clan children, had gone with them, and cats from Wind Clan and Shadow Clan too. However much their clanmates missed them, Leafpaw knew it was for the good of all the clans that they had gone. Yet the danger was here now, she thought, apprehension gripping her belly, and the missing cats had not returned. Did that mean they had failed? Did it mean StarClan had failed, in spite of the warnings they had sent? Cinderpelt's calm gaze rested on the hushed and waiting clan. There will be great danger, she repeated, but I do not believe that ThunderClan will be destroyed. The clan cats looked at one another, bewildered and afraid. The silence seemed to stretch out for 1,000 heartbeats, until it was broken by a single eerie wail rising from the group of elders. As if it were a signal, more yowls and cries of terror broke out. Faced with the terror of approaching monsters, few of the clan could believe Cinderpelt's reassurances. Ferncloud swept her tail protectively around her 3 kits, drawing them into the shelter of her flecked gray fur. What are we gonna do? She cried. Dustbelt got up and pressed his nose comfortably into her side. We'll do something, he promised. We'll show the 2 legs this is our place. And how do you propose doing that? Mousefur added, her voice harsh. When have 2 legs ever cared about us? They do what they want. Their monsters will frighten all the prey, Ashfur added. We already know the forest is emptier than it's ever been, and Leaf Bear's coming. What are we gonna eat? More terrified caterwauling broke out, and several heartbeats went by before Fireheart could make himself heard again. We can't decide what to do until we know more, he meowed, when the noise had died to apprehensive mutterings. What happened yesterday was near Snake Rocks, well away from here. It's possible that the 2 legs won't come any further. Then why would the StarClan send any warnings at all? Thornclaw asked. We've got to face it, Firestar. We can't pretend this isn't happening. I'll arrange extra patrols, Firestar assured him, and I'm going to try speaking to ShadowClan. This was near their border, and they might have had trouble too. You can't believe anything ShadowClan tells you, Cloudtail growled. They wouldn't give you a mousetail if you were starving. Maybe not. Firestar replied. But if the two legs have invaded their territory, they might be prepared to talk if it meant we could help one another. Hedgehogs might fly, Cloudtail grunted. He turned away from Firestar and muttered something into the ear of his mate, Brightheart, who pushed her nose into his fur as if she were reassuring him. Everyone must keep alert, Firestar continued. If you see anything unusual, I want to know. We survived the flood and fire. We survived Tiger Star's dog pack and the threat from Scrooge and Blood Clan. We can survive this too. He leaped down from the rock to show that the meeting was to an end. Immediately, the cats in the clearing broke into anxious little knots, discussing what they had just heard. Firestar and Cinderpelt spoke briefly together, and then Cinderpelt padded over to Leafpaw. Firestar is going to see ShadowClan right away, the medicine cat announced. He wants you to come too. Mingled with excitement and apprehension, clawed at Leafpaw. Why me? Oh, sorry. Why me? He wants both medicine cats with him. He thinks that if we're there, Blackstar will realize ThunderClan isn't looking for a fight. Cinderpelt's blue eyes flashed. All the same, Leafpaw, I hope you've practiced your fighting moves recently. Leafpaw swallowed. Yes, Cinderpelt. Good. With a wave of her tail, she led the way to where Firestar was waiting at the entrance to the gorse tunnel. Greystripe and Barkenfur were with him. Let's go, meowed Firestar. And remember, I don't want any trouble. We're only going to talk. Greystripe snorted. Try telling that to ShadowClan. If Patrol catches us and on their territory, they'll claw us as soon as they see us. Let's hope not, Firestar replied with feeling. The two legs are threatening both our clans. We can't afford to waste our strength in fighting one another. Greystripe still looked doubtful, but he said nothing more as Firestar led them up the ravine towards ShadowClan border. Leafpaw kept her ears prickled for any unusual sounds, and every hair on her pelt stood on end. The forest that had been safe for as long as she could remember was suddenly a frightening place, invaded by the two legs and their monsters. Firestar led his patrol directly towards Snake Rocks, and soon Leafpaw realized that he was headed for the spot where the monster had left the Thunderpath. Before they came in sight of it, she picked up the reek of the monster and the rich, earthy smell of torn ground. When she came to the top of the slope above the Thunderpath, she stopped and peered through a clump of bracken. Just below her, a swath of churned-up grass stretched as far as the Thunderpath. Trees laid on the ground, their roots tangling in the air. Everything was silent. Leafpaw couldn't hear a single bird or the scuffling of prey in the grass. But the monster had gone, and when she opened her jaws to drink in the air, the scent of two legs was stale. Even the reek of the monster was beginning to fade. They haven't been here today, Greystripe meowed. Perhaps they finished what they were doing? I wouldn't count on it, Firestar replied tersely. This is terrible. Brakenfur sounded stunned. He had not been in the original patrol. Why are they destroying the forest, Firestar? The tip of Firestar's tail twitched back and forth. Why do two legs do anything? If we knew that, our lives would be so much easier. Skirting the edge of the damaged area, he led the way along the Thunderpath. Leafpaw's belly lurched as she saw that more trees had been felled in ShadowClan's territory, and more ground had been churned up. Every one of the ThunderClan cats stopped to stare across the hard black surface. Brakenfur dropped into a crouch as if he were about to spring into attack. There was no enemies to fight. Look at that! Greystripe's voice shook with horror. You were right, Firestar. ShadowClan's having the exact same trouble. Then that should make it easier to talk to Blackstar. Firestar was trying to sound confident, but his ears were laid flat against his head. Cinderpelt gave the scarred area a long look before turning away, shaking her head. Though she said nothing, her blue eyes were filled with dread and confusion. A monster roared up by on the Thunderpath, smaller than the tree-eating monsters, but still deafeningly noisy. Leafpaw flinched, half expecting it to veer into the forest where they were standing, but it stayed on the Thunderpath and growled away until it vanished among the trees. Another monster followed it, and then a third raced along in the opposite direction. I don't want to cross here, Greystripe muttered, blinking grit out of his eyes. Firestar nodded. We'll cross the stream by 4 trees and go through the tunnel, he decided. And just hope we don't meet any ShadowClan warriors on this side of the Thunderpath. When they reached the stream, Firestar crossed a in a couple of bounds by a stepping stone in the middle. Leafpaw kept an eye on her mentor, making sure that Cinderpelt crossed safely in spite of an old injury to her leg from a Thunderpath accident seasons before. Then she followed her across, as Firestar climbed the opposite bank. A light breeze was blowing towards them, carrying the rank scent of ShadowClan. At the border, Firestar and Greystripe renewed the scent markers, before Firestar led the way towards the tunnel under the Thunderpath. To Leafpaw's relief, there was no sign of ShadowClan cats in this section of the territory. The elders had told her many stories about that clan's dark-hearted history, from the murdering Broken Star, who had killed his own father, to treacherous Tiger Star, who had made himself ShadowClan leader when he was exiled from ThunderClan. The present leader, Black Star, hadn't caused any trouble so far, but Leafpaw knew that Firestar didn't really trust him. As she followed him into the tunnel, she admired him even more for his courage in trying to make allies of his old enemies for the sake of the forest. Leafpaw shivered as she plunged into the gloomy silence beneath the Thunderpath, broken only by the drip of water and the splashing on their paws in the mud that covered the bottom of the tunnel. On the ShadowClan side, the harsh scent was stronger than ever. The ground under Leafpaw's paws was dank and marshy, covered with coarse, scubby grass. Here and there were pools fringed with reeds, but there were tall trees, unlike those that sheltered the ThunderClan camp. It felt like another world. ShadowClan camp is this way, Firestar meowed, headed for a clump of the bushes. Leafpaw, Cinderpelt, keep close to me. Greystripe and Dragonfur, spread out and keep watch. Remember, we're not looking for trouble. Leafpaw padded behind Firestar as they headed deeper into ShadowClan territory. She hated the way her paws sank into mud at every step. She kept waiting to stop to flick away the moisture. It was hard to imagine ShadowClan cats putting up with this every day of their lives. Surely they would have grown webbed paws by now. Her muscles began to ache from the strain of keeping alert. When Dragonfur called out, she jumped nervously and then hoped that no cat had noticed. Firestar, come and look at this! Dragonfur pointed with his tail to a thin piece of wood, too smooth and regular to be the branch of a tree, standing upright in the ground, about the height of a cat. Firestar padded over to it and sniffed it suspiciously. Reeks of 2 legs, he reported. There's another over here. Another over here. No. There's another over here, Leafpaw called, spotting a matching stick a few fox lengths further away. And another. All in a line. What are they? Her voice died away. As she bounded towards the next piece of wood, the bushes in front of her rustled and 3 cats stepped out into the open. She recognized quickly Russet Fur, the dark ginger she-cat who was ShadowClan's deputy. The other warriors, a dark gray Tom and a lean tabby with a torn ear, were strangers to her. Leafpaw swallowed nervously. Firestar was already bounding up to her. Greetings, Russet Fur, he meowed. Trespassing in our territory, snarled the ShadowClan deputy. With a flick of her tail, she summoned her warriors forward. Leafpaw barely had any time to dodge, as the dark gray Tom sprang at her. She felt claws rake down her side as she rolled away and scrambled to her paws, trying to remember her fighting moves. She caught a glimpse of Cinderpelt and Russet Fur stalking around each other, a tail length away. Greystripe had the tabby pinned down, while Breaking Fur and the other Tom withered together in a screeching bundle of gray and ginger fur. For a moment, she could not see Firestar. Glancing around wildly, she saw that she had leaped into one of the fallen tree trunks. His voice rose into a yowl above the hissing and spitting. Stop! Chapter 3. These are some long chapters. Or maybe I'm just... Hold on, guys. I think I might make myself a quick coffee. I'm a little sleepy. And I'm blaming the heat because the heat is evil. Maybe someone will die soon and we can finally increase our death toll. That would be really cool. You're having the time of your life. Yay! I'm glad. Okay. I'll be right back, guys, okay? I love Warrior Cat Wednesday. It's my favorite. It's also the only thing that I consistently upload onto my YouTube VOD page. All right, be right back. I think you can hear my sister playing with my dog outside. I apologize for that. Maybe you can try and make out what she's saying. Hi, Cordy. Hi. Thank you for the hydrate. I did hydrate some coffee into my body. I'm drinking a new coffee. It's an instant coffee. Like when you shovel in and then put boiling water over. Why am I'm out of breath going up the stairs because it's so hot. And then I put milk in it, and then I put some whipped cream on top. So I've never had this, so I don't know how intense it's gonna be. I might go a little crazy later. We'll see as it sets in, or I might be totally fine. I don't know. It tastes pretty average. Honestly, it doesn't really taste like anything. It's like flavors mixed together, but they're so neutral. Like they've neutralized each other almost. I guess it's a good thing if you're drinking coffee and you're just drinking it to get like hyper or awake even. I'm gonna let my cat out real quick because she's in here. Hey, baby honey. How about I know? You're nice and hot and delicious. Oh my gosh, that reminds me. Yesterday I was so hot, my brain stopped working, and I was like I would just zone out, and like I was talking so slow. I wish that I was on stream or something so you guys could have heard me. It was so funny. Like I was laughing at myself, and then my brain wasn't working even more. One day you guys will get me when I'm either extremely tired or drunk or heat melting. Also yesterday, no, not yesterday, just now. You know when I said like, oh, if you hear my sister talking outside, turns out she just came back from a walk with my dog and the back door was locked. And so she was stuck outside. And she phoned me, but I was downstairs making coffee. And it was funny because I went down and then I saw her at the door struggling with it. And I was like, oh, what's she doing? Like closing the door or something? Because I didn't know she even left the house. And then, okay, maybe this coffee is already kicking in. And then I was like, oh, I want to say hi to my dog. And so I went and I opened the door and I went to go pet the dog. And then she's like, oh, thanks for letting me in. And I was like, oh yeah, it was locked, wasn't it? So that was really good timing, actually. I would have had to go downstairs anyways to let her in, so she wouldn't melt in the hot sun. All right. I guess the downfall about having like a coffee is like, it's gonna go to my gut, right? And I'm gonna have to go to the bathroom, which I hope that I'll have to do that like after the stream. I hope it's not like fast-acting laxative type shenanigans. You know how coffee is sometimes. Okay. Let's keep going. Right. Chapter 3. You lot stay here, Purdy ordered in an undertone. Let me deal with this. Stormfur stared in dismay as the old Tom shuffled forward towards the foxes, his rumpled fur on end, his tail lashing back and forth. Frozen by shock, the others might have let Purdy attack and be torn to pieces if Stormfur had not stepped forward at the last moment and pushed him aside. What? Purdy protested. Let me get at him. I've chased off more foxes than you've had mice, young fella. Then give the rest of us a chance, Stormfur retorted grimly. The two foxes were creeping slowly up the bank, their eyes flickering from one cat to the next. Too late, Stormfur realized that he and his friends had been wrong to assume the woods had no danger for them. He saw that Crowpaw had stepped forward to shield Feathertail, while Brambleclaw tried to do the same for Squirrelpaw. But the ThunderClan apprentice slipped out from the shelter of his flank and stood beside him, with her ears flattened and one paw extended threateningly. What are you doing? Treading on my tail, she growled. I can take care of myself. You did say you could eat a fox, Tawny Pelt pointed out wryly. Now's your chance. The foxes crept nearer. Stormfur braced himself, his gaze fixed on their narrow snouts and cold, glittering eyes, trying to guess where they would attack first. Back home, foxes weren't much of a threat to cats who kept alert. They could be avoided, but these were obviously young and spoiling for a fight, eager to defend their territory. Stormfur was sure that the 6 of them could drive the creatures off eventually, but not without serious injuries. And what would that mean for their journey? StarClan, help us, he prayed desperately. Crowpaw, who was nearest to the foxes, crouched to spring. There was barely a tail length between him and the first of them when Stormfur heard a strange sound behind him, half growling, half barking. The leading fox abruptly lifted his head and stood very still. Stormfur flicked a glance over his shoulder. Midnight had lumbered forward, thrusting her way between Purdy and Feathertail until she stood in front of the foxes. She said something else in the same mixture of barks and growls, although Stormfur could not understand what she was saying. There was no mistaking the threat in the way that her shoulders hunched, or the hostility in her black eyes. Then his ears pricked in shock as the first fox barked what was obviously a reply. I'd forgotten Midnight told us she could speak fox, he muttered, glancing at Brambleclaw. The ThunderClan warrior nodded without taking his eyes off the foxes. They say this is their place, Midnight reported. To come here is to be their prey. Fox them to that, Crowpaw burst out. Tell them if they try anything, we'll rip their fur off. Midnight shook her head. No, small warrior cat. Cat fur be ripped also. Wait. Crowpaw backed off a pace or two, still looking furious, and Feathertail pressed her nose against his flank. Midnight said something else to the foxes. I can tell them you only pass through, she explained to the cats when she had finished. I tell them much prey is here in woods. Easier prey that does not rip fur. The leading fox was looking confused now, perhaps out of surprise at hearing a badger speak fox, perhaps because it was taking her arguments seriously. But the second, a lean dog fox with a scarred muzzle, was still glaring past Midnight at the group of cats, his teeth bared. He snarled out something that was a threat in any language. Midnight barked a single word. Taking a step forward, she raised a paw, her massive body posed to strike. Every hair on Stormfur's pelt prickled as he braced himself for a fight. Then the dog fox started to back away, growling a last curse at Midnight before turning and vanishing into the bracken. Midnight's gaze swiveled over to its companion, but the other fox paused only to bark out something rapidly before following. Don't come back, if you know what's good for you, Crowpaw yowled after them. Stormfur relaxed, feeling his fur lie flat again. Squirrelpaw flopped down on the ground with a noisy sigh. All the cats, even Purdy, were looking at the badger with new respect. Brambleclaw patted over to her and dipped his head. Thanks, Midnight, he meowed. That could have been nasty. They might have killed us, Feathertail added. I suppose it's a bad time for a fight, Crowpaw admitted. Stormfur sighed as the aggressive note in the apprentice's voice as he went on. All the same, I'd like to know why you didn't warn us about the foxes. You said you can read everything in the stars, so why didn't you tell us they'd be here? Even though he would never have asked the question, Stormfur waited tensely for Midnight's reply. She had told them so much already about the threat to the forest and how they must go home to lead the clans to safety. If they did not trust her, they and all their clanmates would be helpless in the face of destruction. Could she have warned them about the foxes? For a moment the badger loomed over the Wind Clan apprentice, her black eyes furious. Crowpaw could not hide a flash of alarm in his eyes, though to his credit he did not back down. Then Midnight relaxed. I not say everything. Everything indeed StarClan not want me to say. Much, yes. How two legs tear up forest. Leave no place for cats to stay. But many answers lie within ourselves. This you have already learned, no? I suppose, Crowpaw muttered. Midnight turned away from him. Foxes say you must go now, she told the cats. If you stay here at sunset, they attack. That fox, dog fox, he says he tasted cat once. Liked it fine. Well, he's not going to taste it again, snapped Tawny Belt. We have to leave anyways, Brambleclaw pointed out, and we're not looking for trouble from foxes. Let's go. They paused for a few moments to gulp down the rest of their prey. Then Midnight took the lead and brought them after a short time to the edge of the forest. The sun was dipping below the trees, and where they stood was already in shadows. In front of them, Stormfur saw yet more open moorland with a range of mountains in the distance. Over to one side were the hard reddish shapes of the two-leg place they had traveled through on their onward journey. Which way now? He asked. Midnight raised one paw to point straight ahead. That quickest way, path where sun rises. It's not the way we came, Brambleclaw mewed uneasily. We came through two-leg place. And I am not going back in there, Crowpaw put in. I'll climb as many mountains as you like before I face all those two legs again. I'm not sure, Feathertail meowed. At least we know the way through the two-leg place, and we've got Purdy to help us. Crowpaw replied only with the contemptuous snort. Stormfur half agreed with him. They had spent many frightening, hungry days wandering in two-leg place, and Purdy had seemed as lost as any of them. But the mountains were unfamiliar too. Even from here, Stormfur could see that their upper slopes were bare gray rock, with a streak of white here and there. That must be the first snow of the approaching leaf bear. They were far higher than the high stones, and he wondered how much shelter or prey they would find up there. I agree with Feathertail, he meowed at last. We made it through two-leg place once, so we can do it again. Brambleclaw glanced from one to another, undecided. What do you think, Tawnypelt? His sister shrugged. Whatever you like. There'll be problems whichever way we go. We all know that. True enough, Stormfur thought grimly. Well, I think, Squirrelpaw began, and broke off with a gasp. Her green eyes had widened with an expression of horror. They seemed to be fixed on something in the distance that no other cat could see. Squirrelpaw? What's the matter? Brambleclaw meowed urgently. I don't know. Squirrelpaw gave herself a shake. Just make up your mind quick, Brambleclaw, and let's be off. I want to go that way if it's the quickest route. She flicked her tail towards the distant mountains. We'll waste days and days going through two-leg place again. Stormfur's whiskers began to tingle. Squirrelpaw was right. They already knew that the route among the two-leg nests was confusing and difficult. What dangers could there be in the mountains that could be worse than the rats and monsters they knew that they would meet in two-leg place? All that mattered was to get back to the forest without delay. I think she's got a point, he meowed. I've changed my mind. I vote we should go through the mountains. Squirrelpaw's dark ginger tail twitched to and fro, and she flexed her claws into the grass. Well, she spat at Brambleclaw, are you going to make up your mind or not? Brambleclaw took a deep breath. Okay, mountains it is then. Eh? What? Purdy had been scratching one ear with his hind paw, but when Brambleclaw made his decision, he looked up in alarm, blinking his wide amber eyes. You can't go that way. It's dangerous. Well, what about the... Danger is all around. Midnight broke in, silencing Purdy with a fierce glare. Your friends get great courage will need the path that has been laid out for them in the stars. Stormfur shot a sharp look at the old tabby. What had Purdy been trying to say when Midnight interrupted him? Did he know of some particular danger in the mountains? And if so, why had Midnight stopped him from telling the rest of them? He thought that he could see wisdom in her face, and something like regret. Just what did she mean by the path that has been laid out? Choice is hard, young warrior. The badger spoke in low tone to Brambleclaw. Stormfur edged a pace closer so that he could hear. Your path before you lies, and many challenges you will have to return safe home. Brambleclaw gazed into the badger's eyes for a long moment before padding forward a few paces across the moorland. Whatever these challenges might be, he seemed ready to face them, and Stormfur couldn't help admiring his resolve, even though he came from a rival clan. When Purdy scrambled to his feet to follow, Midnight put out one paw to hold him back. The old Tom bristled, his amber eyes glaring. Get out of my way! he rasped. Midnight did not move. With them you cannot go, she rumbled. The way is theirs alone. Her black eyes gleamed in the dusk. Young and rash they are, and tests will be many. Their own courage they need, my friend, not yours. Too much on you they would rely. Purdy blinked. Well, if you put it like that. Feathertail darted up to him and gave his ear a quick lick. We'll never forget you, Purdy, or anything you've done for us. Just behind her, Crowpaw opened his mouth with his eyes narrowed, as if he were about to say something cutting. Stormfur froze him with a glare. He doubted they would see the old cat again, and although Purdy had made mistakes, he had stood by them and brought them safely to Midnight in the end. Goodbye, Purdy, and thank you. We could have never found Midnight without you. Brambleclaw echoed Stormfur's thoughts. And thank you too, Midnight. The badger inclined her head. Farewell, my friends. May Starkland light your path. The rest of the cats said their own goodbyes and began to follow Brambleclaw out into the moor. Stormfur brought up the rear. Glancing back, he saw Midnight and Purdy sitting side by side under the outlining trees, watching them go. It was impossible to read their expressions in the gathering dusk. Stormfur waved his tail in the last farewell and turned his face towards the mountains. Chapter 4. Hi, Kudo Sky! Don't know if you're still here, but hello! Sorry, I usually only talk during chapter breaks. Sometimes I get a little distracted. You know how it is. This coffee is working. It's working. That's good. Chapter 4. At Firestar's yell of command, Brakenfur and the Grey Shadow Clan warrior broke apart. Greystripe looked up from the tabby, but still kept the paw firmly on his neck. Let him go, Firestar ordered. We're not here to fight. It's hard to do anything when they jump us like that, Greystripe hissed. He stepped back, and the skinny tabby scrambled to his paws and shook his ruffled fur. Leafpaw bounded across the marshy ground to stand beside Cinderpoke, half afraid that Russetfur might still attack the medicine cat. ShadowClan's deputy was not likely to take orders from the leader of a rival clan. Russetfur flicked her tail towards the dark gray Tom. Cinderheart, get back to camp. Cedarheart. Warn Blackstar that we have been invaded, and fetch more warriors. The gray warrior streaked off into the bushes. There's no need for that, Firestar pointed out, keeping his voice mild. We're not invading your territory, and we're not trying to steal prey. Then what do you want? Russetfur demanded bad-temperedly. What are we supposed to think when you trespass into our territory? Sorry about that. Firestar leaped down from the tree trunk and padded across to her. I know we shouldn't be here. It's just that I have to speak to Blackstar. Something has happened. Something that's too urgent to wait for the next gathering. Russetfur sniffed disbelievingly, but sheathed her claws. Leafpaw felt her racing heart begin to slow down. The ShadowClan deputy was too badly outnumbered to launch another attack, especially when she had sent away the Grey Tom, Cedarheart. What's so urgent, then? Firestar gestured with his tail through the sparse trees, towards the swath of destruction that the two-legged monster had left on this side of the Thunderpath. Is that enough? He asked desperately. Russetfur silenced him with a furious hiss. If you think ShadowClan is weakened... I didn't say that, Firestar protested, but you must have seen that we've had the same trouble on our territory. Now, are you going to drive us off, or are you going to let us talk to Blackstar? Russetfur narrowed her eyes, then gave a curt nod. Very well. Follow me. She led the way through the bushes. The ThunderClan cats bunched together behind her, and the tabby ShadowClan warrior brought up the rear. Leafpaw's heart began to pound again as the sense of the strange territory flooded around her. Even the day had grown darker, clouds covering the sun so their path was shadowed. She tried to stop herself from jumping at every sound, or staring around as if there might be a ShadowClan warrior lurking behind every tree. Soon Leafpaw became aware of a stronger ShadowClan scent coming from up ahead. Russetfur led the way around a thick clump of hazel. Following her, Leafpaw stopped dead in front of a long line of cats. Lean warriors with their muscles tensed and the light of battle in their eyes. Behind them rose a tangled wall of brambles. That's the ShadowClan camp, Cinderpelt muttered close to Leafpaw's ears. It doesn't look as if Blackstar is going to invite us in. The Shadow Clan leader stood in the middle of his warriors. He was a huge white cat with black paws. His pelt showed the scars of many battles. As the ThunderClan cats appeared, he stepped forward and faced Firestar with narrowed eyes. "What is this?" His voice was rough. "Does the great Firestar think he can go where he likes in the forest?" Firestar ignored the contempt in Blackstar's tone, simply dipping his head in courteous greeting of one leader to another. "I've come to talk to you about what the Two Legs are doing," he began. "We have to decide what we're going to do if it carries on." "We? What do you mean, we?" "ShadowClan does not talk with ThunderClan," Blackstar retorted. "We make our own decisions." "But the forest is being destroyed." Leafpaw heard the exasperation in her leader's tone, and she knew how hard it was for Firestar to keep calm when ShadowClan's leader insisted on treating him like an enemy. The ShadowClan leader shrugged his powerful shoulders. "Firestar, you're panicking over nothing. Two-Leg are mad. Even the smallest kid knows this. True, they knocked down a few trees, but now they've gone away again. Whatever is going on, it's over." Leafpaw wondered if Blackstar really believed that. Surely he couldn't be such a fool. Or was this just a show of bravado to convince Firestar that ShadowClan had nothing to worry about? "And if it's not over?" Firestar asked steadily. "If it gets worse? Prey's been frightened away from where the Two Legs have been. What if the Two Legs claw more of our territory? What will you do in Leafbear, Blackstar, if you can't feed your clan?" One or two of the ShadowClan warriors looked uneasy, but their leader stared defiantly at Firestar. "We have no reason to fear Leafbear," he meowed. "We can always eat rats from Karen Place." Cinderpelt twitched her ears impatiently. "Have you forgotten what happened last time you tried that? Half your clan died from sickness." "That's true. That's true." The small Tabby Tom, crouched at the edge of the line, spoke up boldly. Leafpaw recognized Little Cloud, the ShadowClan medicine cat. "I was ill myself. I would have died if it hadn't been for you, Cinderpelt." "Be quiet, Little Cloud," Blackstar ordered. "The sickness was a punishment from StarClan because Nightstar was not our properly chosen leader. There's no danger in eating food from Karen Place now." "Yeah, Runny Nose is dead." "Oh wait, when did Runny Nose die?" "Did Runny Nose... Was Runny Nose dead in the... Oh my god, he's dead. We have two deaths. Hold on. We have two deaths! Woohoo! "There's danger if a leader silences his medicine cat," Cinderpelt retorted tartly, "or pretends to know more than they do about the will of StarClan." Blackstar glared at her, but said nothing. "Listen to me," Firestar said again desperately. "I believe that great trouble is coming to the forest. Trouble that will survive only if we work together." "Mouse dung!" Blackstar snarled. "Don't try and tell me what to do, Firestar. I'm not one of your warriors. If you have anything to say, you should do what we have always done. And bring it to the next gathering at 4 Trees. Part of Leafpaw felt that the ShadowClan leader was right. The warrior code dictated that the business of the forest should be discussed at gatherings. There was nowhere else the cats could meet under the sacred truce of StarClan. At the same time, she knew that the Two Legs wouldn't wait until after the next full moon to continue their destruction of the forest. What else might happen by the time of the next gathering? "Very well, Blackstar." Firestar's voice was hollow with defeat. "It's happening," Leafpaw thought in panic. "He's giving up. The forest is going to be destroyed." "Leafpaw, now that's a little exaggeration. That's a little bit of a bad mentality, my girl. If that's the way you want it. But if Two Legs come back, you have my permission to send a messenger into ThunderClan territory, and we will talk again." "Generous as always, Firestar." Blackstar meowed scornfully. "Nothing's gonna happen that we can't handle ourselves." "Mouse brain," Greystripe hissed. Firestar shot a warning glance, but the ShadowClan leader did not reply. Instead, he swept his tail towards Russet Fur. Take some warriors and escort these cats off our territory, he ordered. And in case you were thinking of paying another uninvited visit, he added to Firestar, we'll be increasing our patrols along the border. Now go! Dang, what's his problem? There was nothing to do but obey. Firestar turned and signaled his own cats to follow him. Russet Fur and her warriors gathered around them in a threatening semicircle, letting them walk away but keeping them bunched together tightly. Leafpaw was glad when the tunnel under Thunderpath came into sight, and more relieved still to be through it and head toward their own part of the forest. Don't come back! Russet Fur spat as they crossed the border. Wait, whoa! Graystripe hurled a parting shot over his shoulder. We were only trying to help, you stupid furball! Leave it, Graystripe. Now that they were back in their own territory, Firestar let his disappointment show. Leafpaw felt a sharp stab of compassion for him. It wasn't his fault that ShadowClan had refused to listen to reason. Maybe we should try to talk to WindClan, she suggested quietly to Cinderpelt as the patrol headed for camp. Perhaps they've had trouble too. That could be why they've been stealing fish from a river clan. She was referring to the furious accusation made by Hawkfrost, a river clan warrior, at the last gathering. If they have. It was never proven, Cinderpelt reminded her. All the same, Leafpaw, you might have a point. Ravenpaw said there were more two-legs than usual out on that part of the Thunderpath. Then perhaps Firestar should talk to Tallstar? I don't think Firestar will be talking to any more clan leaders for a while, Cinderpelt meowed, with a sympathetic glance at the flame-colored Tom. Besides, Tallstar is a proud leader. He'd never admit that his clan is starving. But Firestar has to do something. Perhaps Blackstar was right, and he should wait for the gathering. But if I get the chance, Cinderpelt interrupted her apprentice's protest. I'll have a word with him. She lifted her blue gaze to the cloud-covered sky. And let's just pray that StarClan has mercy on us, whatever happens. Sorreltail, are you there? Leafpaw stood outside the warrior's den and tried to peer through the branches. It was early the following morning. A thick fog covered the camp and misted her fur with tiny droplets of water. Sorreltail, he repeated. There was a scuffling sound inside the den, and Sorreltail poked her head out, blinking sleep from her eyes. Leafpaw? Her jaw gaped wide in a yawn. What's the matter? Sun's not up yet. I was having this terrific dream about a mouse. Sorry, Leafpaw mewed, but I want you to do something with me. Are you due to go out with the Dawn Patrol? No. Sorreltail squeezed out between the branches and gave the fur on her shoulder a quick lick. What's this about? Leafpaw took a deep breath. I want to go and visit WindClan. Will you come with me? Sorreltail's eyes stretched wide, and her tail curled up in surprise. What if we meet a WindClan patrol? It should be okay. I'm a medicine cat apprentice, so I'm allowed to go into territories between here and Highstones. Please, Sorreltail, I really need to know whether WindClan is having trouble too. Though she couldn't tell Sorreltail, Leafpaw knew that a cat from every clan had been chosen by StarClan for the journey. Because of that, she suspected that every clan would be invaded by two-legs, but she wanted to be sure. The light of adventure was already sparkling in Sorreltail's eyes. I'm up for it, she declared. Let's get a move on, before any cat catches us and starts asking questions. She darted across the clearing and into the gorse tunnel. Leafpaw followed, with a last glance back at the silent, sleeping camp. The fog hung thickly in the ravine, deadening the sound of their paw steps. Everything was gray, and though the dawn light was strengthening, there was no sign of the sun. The break-in was bent double with the weight of water drops, and soon the two cats' pelts were soaked. Sorreltail shivered. Why did I ever leave my warm nest? She complained, only half joking. Still, if it's like this on the moor, the fog will help hide us. And muffle our scent, Leafpaw agreed. But before she and Sorreltail reached Four Trees, the mist had begun to thin out. It still lay heavy on the stream, but when they climbed to the opposite bank, they broke out into sunlight. Leafpaw shook the moisture from her fur, but there was little heat from the sun rays. She looked forward to a good run across the moor to warm herself up. As they skirted the top of the hollow at Four Trees, Leafpaw felt a breeze blowing directly off the moorland. She and Sorreltail paused for a moment at the far side of the hollow, and their fur blown back and their jaws parted to scent the air. WindClan, Sorreltail meowed. She put her head to one side uncertainly. There's something odd about it, though. Yes, there's no sign of any rabbits, Leafpaw added. She hesitated for a couple more heartbeats, and then led the way across the border. The two cats darted from one clump of gorse to the next, making what use they could of the scent cover on the moorland. Leafpaw's fur prickled. Her tabby and white pelt would show up starkly against the short grass. In the ThunderClan camp, she had been confident that as a medicine cat she would not be challenged. Now she felt small and vulnerable. She wanted to find out what she could, then hurry back to the safety of her own territory. She headed for the crest of a low hill that looked down over the thunder path, and flattened herself in the grass to peer down. Beside her, Sorreltail let out a long hiss. Well, there's not much doubt about that, she mewed. Leading from the thunder path on the far side of the territory was a long scar where the moor grass had been torn away. The track was marked by short stakes of wood like the ones Leafpaw had seen in ShadowClan territory the day before. It gouged a path across the moor and came to an abrupt halt at the foot of the hill where she and Sorreltail were crouched. A glittering monster sat silent where it ended. Leafpaw's breath came in short gasps as she imagined it scanning the moorland, ready to leap on its prey with a roar. Where are its two legs? Sorreltail muttered. Leafpaw glanced from side to side, but everything was quiet, and an air of menace lay thick as fog on the scarred landscape. There was still no scent of rabbits. They had been frightened away. Had they been frightened away? Leafpaw wondered. Or had the two legs taken them? Perhaps they had moved to a different part of the moor where the monsters dug up their burrows? Yuck! Sorreltail exclaimed suddenly. Can you smell that? As she spoke, Leafpaw picked it up too, a harsh tang like nothing she had ever scented before. Instinctively, her stomach churned and she curled her lip. What is that? Probably something to do with the two legs, Sorreltail meowed disgustedly. A distant yowl interrupted her. Leafpaw sprang to her paws and spun around to see 3 WindClan warriors racing towards them. Uh-oh, murmured Sorreltail. Before Leafpaw could decide whether to run or stay to talk, the WindClan cats had surrounded them. With a sinking heart, she recognized the aggressive deputy Mudclaw, with the tabby warrior Tornier and another tabby Tom she did not know. She would rather have dealt with the clan leader, Tallstar, or Firestar's friend, One Whisker, who were both more likely to listen to her explanation. Why are you trespassing in our territory? The WindClan deputy demanded. I'm a medicine cat apprentice, Leafpaw pointed out, bowing her head respectfully. I came to spy! That was Tornier, his eyes blazing with anger. Don't think we don't know what you're up to. Now that the WindClan cats were up close, Leafpaw could see how thin they were. Their bristling pelts hardly covered their ribs. Fierce scent came off of them in waves, almost drowning the scent of their fury. They were obviously short on food, but that didn't explain why they were so much more hostile than ShadowClan had been. I'm sorry, we were only... she began. Mudclaw interrupted with a frenzied shriek. Attack! Tornier hurled herself at Leafpaw. The ThunderClan cats were outnumbered and outclassed. Besides, she and Sorreltail had not come to fight. Run! Leafpaw yowled. She leaped back from Tornier's outstretched claws. Spinning around, she fled for the border, her belly close to the ground, and her tail streaming out behind her. Sorreltail raced along at her side. Leafpaw dared not look over her shoulder, but she could hear the shrieks of the pursuing cats hard on their paws. The border was in sight, but she barely had time to realize that they were bearing too far towards the river when the scent markers flooded over her. WindClan and RiverClan scents mixed together. Oh no, she exclaimed. We're in RiverClan territory now. Keep going, Sorreltail panted. It's only a narrow strip between here and ThunderClan territory. Leafpaw risked a glance to see if the WindClan patrol was still pursuing them. They were. They must be so furious they hadn't noticed the border, or did not care. They're gaining on us, she gasped. We'll have to fight. We can't lead them onto our territory. She and Sorreltail whirled to face the attackers. Leafpaw braced herself, wishing desperately that she had never thought of entering WindClan territory, and especially that she had not brought Sorreltail into danger with her. As Mudclaw leaped at her, Leafpaw saw a streak of golden flesh shoot from a nearby bush. It was Mothwing, the medicine cat apprentice from RiverClan. Then Mudclaw's body crashed against hers and she was rolling on the ground, squirming to escape a flurry of raking claws. She tried to twist around and sink her teeth into his neck, but there was a weary strength in the deputy's lean body that trapped her helplessly like a piece of prey. Leafpaw felt his claws rake across her side and burn themselves in her shoulder. With a massive effort, she shook him off, trying to bring her hind paws up to attack his belly. Suddenly, the weight lifted, and Mudclaw was scrambling on a foothold beside her. Leafpaw staggered to her paws to see Mouthwing cuffing him hard over both ears. "Get off our territory!" she spat, "and take your mangy friends with you!" Mudclaw aimed a final blow at her, but he was already backing away. Sorrowtail sprang up from where she and Tornir pinned down and bit hard on his tail before releasing him. He fled, yowling after the clan deputy. The other Tappy warrior had already vanished. Mothwing turned back to the ThunderClan cats. Her golden tappy fur was hardly ruffled, and her amber eyes gleamed with satisfaction. "Having trouble?" she murmured. Leafpaw fought for breath and shook leaves and scraps of twigs from her palm. "Thanks, Mothwing," she replied. "I don't know what we would have done without you." Turning to her friend, she added, "Sorrowtail, have you met Mothwing?" "She's Mudfur's apprentice, but she was training as a warrior first." "Well, it's a good thing she was," Sorrowtail mewed, with a nod of thanks to the RiverClan cat. "We bit off more than we could chew there." "Sorry we're on your territory," Leafpaw went on. "We'll go right away." "Oh, there's no hurry." Mothwing did not try to question them about why they were there, or what they had done to annoy WindClan. "You look pretty shaken. Rest for a bit, and I'll find some herbs to calm me down." She vanished among the bushes, leaving Leafpaw and Sorrowtail with nothing to do but sit and wait for her. "Has she always been this careless about the warrior code?" Sorrowtail muttered. "She doesn't seem to understand that we shouldn't be here. I think it's because I'm a medicine cat apprentice, too." "Even medicine cats have to stick to the warrior code," mewed Sorrowtail. "And I can't see Cinderpelt being so welcoming to other clans. Of course, Mothwing's mother was a rogue, wasn't she? That would explain it." Mothwing is a loyal RiverClan cat." Leafpaw fired up in defense of her friend. "It doesn't matter who her mother was." "I never said it did," Sorrowtail soothed her, touching Leafpaw's shoulder with her tail tip. "But that might be why she's more relaxed about clan boundaries." Mothwing returned at that moment with a wad of herbs in her jaws. The ThunderClan apprentice drank in the sense of time. She remembered Cinderpelt telling her how good it was for calming anxieties. "There!" Mothwing meowed. "Eat some of that and you'll soon feel better." Leafpaw and Sorrowtail crouched down and chewed up the herbs. Leafpaw imagined the juices soaking into every scrap of her body, healing the shock of their terrifying encounter with WindClan. "Are you hurt at all?" Mothwing asked. "I can fetch some cobwebs." "No, there's no need, thanks," Leafpaw assured her. She and Sorrowtail both had a few scratches, but they would stop bleeding by themselves without the need for a poultice or cobwebs. Poultice of cobwebs. "We really ought to be going." "So what was that all about?" Mothwing inquired, as Leafpaw and Sorrowtail swallowed the last of their herbs. She wasn't quite as uninterested as the ThunderClan cats had thought. "What are you doing on WindClan's territory?" "We went to see what those two legs are up to," Leafpaw explained. When Mothwing still looked mystified, she described how she had seen the monster roaring into the forest 2 days before, tearing up the ground, and then found evidence that WindClan and ShadowClan were being destroyed in the same way. She was aware of a doubtful glance at Sorrowtail. The young warrior was clearly unhappy about revealing ThunderClan's problems to a cat from a rival clan. Leafpaw shook her head impatiently. There could be no harm in taking another medicine cat into her confidence. "Firestar wants to ask the other clans what they think," she finished, "but ShadowClan won't admit anything is wrong. And, well, you've seen how WindClan reacted." "What can you expect?" Sorrowtail broke in. She passed her tongue over her lips as if she didn't much like the taste of the herbs. "No clan is going to be in a hurry to tell us they're starving and losing their territory to two legs." "We've seen nothing of these monsters in RiverClan," Mothwing meowed. "Everything's fine here. But it explains one thing." Her amber eyes widened. I've sensed panic over WindClan territory. Their scent markers on the border are filled with fear." "I'm not surprised," Sorrowtail mewed. "They're as thin as anything, and there's no scent of rabbits anywhere." "Everything's changing," Leafpaw murmured. And inside the clans as well. An ambitious cat might take the chance of... Mothwing spoke quickly, urgently, and then broke off awkwardly. What do you mean? Leafpaw prompted. Oh, no. I don't know. Mothwing trailed off and looked away. Vicious. Leafpaw stared at her, wondering what was going on inside that beautiful golden head. Leafpaw, that's not a way you describe a friend. I mean, like, it is, but, like... I don't know. That's a little... She was too young to remember Tiger Star. You weren't born then. The bloodthirsty cat who had plotted to make himself the leader of ThunderClan. When his murderous plans failed, he had been prepared to destroy the whole clan for vengeance. She shivered. Did Mothwing know of another cat with ambition like this? Surely the forest could never produce another Tiger Star. Her thoughts were interrupted when Mothwing sprang to her paws, her head turned towards the river. A patrol is coming! She exclaimed. Come this way, quickly! She slipped between two bushes. Leafpaw and Sorreltail followed. A few moments later, they came into the open and found themselves on the slope that led up to ThunderClan border. If your clan is short on prey, come and see me, Mothwing mewed. We can always spare a few fish. Now run! Leafpaw and Sorreltail streaked up the slope and plunged for cover in more bushes. Though Leafpaw braced herself for accusing snarls behind her, they reached the border unseen. Thanks StarClan for that, Sorreltail exclaimed as they crossed into their own territory. Leafpaw looked back through the branches. Mothwing was standing where they had left her. A moment later, the undergrowth parted and a large, sleek-furred tabby warrior emerged. Leafpaw recognized Mothwing's brother, Hawkfrost. Two other warriors followed him. Hawkfrost stopped to talk to his sister, but never once glanced in the direction of ThunderClan cats. Looking at the warrior's massive shoulders and strong muscles, Leafpaw was relieved that he had not caught them trespassing. Unlike Mothwing, he kept strictly to the warrior code, and he was unlikely to listen to explanations. Not for the first time, Leafpaw felt that he reminded her of some other cat, but however hard she stared at him, she could not remember who. Come on, Sorreltail meowed. Are you gonna stare at those RiverClan warriors all day? It's time we get back, and then you can decide how much you're gonna tell Firestar. Chapter 5. Stormfur's paw scrabbled on smooth gray rock. Heaving himself upward, he reached the top of the boulder and turned to look down at his friends, his fur buffed by the icy breeze. Come on, he meowed. It's not so bad if you take a leap at it. Following the rising sun, he and the other cats had left the moorland behind and began to climb. Now, as Sunhigh approached on the second day of their homeward journey, the mountains they had seen from a far distance stretched up in front of them, even bigger than they had imagined, their sheer slopes back and forbidding, with wisps of clouds floating around their peaks. The soil beneath the cat's paws was rough with pebbles, and little grew there except sparse grass and twisted thorn trees. There was no clear path. Instead, they followed winding, narrow clefts, and often had to turn back when they came up against rock walls with no way through. Thinking wistfully of the river sliding through deep, cool grasses at home, Stormfur half wished that they had decided to return through the two-leg place instead. Squirrelpaw bunched her hind legs and launched herself in a massive leap, following Stormfur up the boulder that blocked their path. Ow, stung! She gasped as she missed the top and began to slide back. Stormfur leaned over and sank his teeth into her neck fur, steadying her until the scraping claws propelled her up the last tail length to sit beside him. Thanks! Her green eyes glowed at him. I know my name's Squirrelpaw, but I never thought I'd wish I was a squirrel. Stormfur let out a meow of laughter. We all wish we were squirrels if we get much more of this. Hey! Crowpaw's voice rose aggressively from below. Stand back, will ya? How can I get up there with you two furballs standing in the way? Stormfur and Squirrelpaw stepped back from the top of the boulder, and a moment later Crowpaw joined them, his long limbs managing to jump easily. Ignoring the others, he turned back to help Feathertail, who was scrambling up with a muttered curse as one of her claws snagged on a rock. Stormfur was worried that the rat bite in Tawny Pelt's shoulder would stop her from climbing the boulder, and wondered if they would have to try finding a way around it. But to his relief, her leap brought her almost to the top, where Crowpaw grabbed her by the scruff and hauled her up. Brambleclaw joined them at last, shaking his ruffled tabby fur as he stood up on top of the boulder and looked around. This close to sun-high, there were few shadows to point them in the right direction, and nothing but sheer precipice in front of them, hiding what lay ahead. Precipice? I suppose we go that way, he meowed, flicking his tail towards a narrow ledge leading across the face of a rock. What do you think? He asked Stormfur. Stormfur felt his pelt prickle as he looked at the ledge. A few straggling bushes had rooted themselves in cracks, but apart from that the rock was bare, and if they slipped there was nothing to hold onto. We can try, he meowed doubtfully, rather surprised that Brambleclaw had asked him his opinion. There's nothing else unless we go back. Brambleclaw nodded. Bring up the rear, will you? He asked. We don't know what might be lurking around here, and we need a strong cat to watch our back. Stormfur murmured agreement, feeling a warm glow that spread from his ears to tail tip at the ThunderClan cat's praise. Brambleclaw was neither his leader nor his mentor, but Stormfur couldn't help feeling strong admiration for the young warrior's courage from the way he had taken the lead on this difficult journey. I've changed my mind, Squirrelpaw announced as Brambleclaw squeezed his way along the edge. I don't want to be a squirrel anymore. I'd rather be a bird. Stormfur brought up the rear as Brambleclaw had asked, his ears pricked for danger while he tried to hide his nervousness about the sheer drop, which tugged at him like an invisible weight. He hugged the rock face, placing each paw carefully and using his tail for balance. After a little while, the breeze grew stronger, and Stormfur's mind filled with terrifying images of himself or one of his friends blown right off the edge and down to the ground below. After a short while, the ledge curved around the rock face, out of sight. Before Stormfur reached the turn, Tawnypelt, who was just in front of him, stopped abruptly, and from far ahead he heard Feathertail exclaim, "Oh no!" "What's the matter?" Stormfur asked. Tawnypelt edged forward more slowly, and Stormfur followed until he could see what was ahead. His belly lurched. A gap had opened up between their ledges and the rock face, and the ledge became a spur of rock, jutting out from the side of the mountain and narrowing to a point. On both sides was dizzying drop to a valley below where a mountain stream flowed, looking thin as a mouse tail. Oh, dang it. Do you want me to go back? He called to Brambleclaw. Hang on a minute, the ThunderClan warrior replied. There might be a way. Look over there. Stormfur looked to where his tail was pointing. On the mountainside beyond their gap, the rock face had broken away, and a narrow rift had opened up between the two steep slopes. Bushes were growing there, and one or two small trees. A stream trickled down one side, overhung by grasses. The going looks easier there, Feathertail meowed. But how do we get across? Squirrelpaw lifted her head and tasted the air. I can smell rabbits, she mewed longingly. Stormfur measured the gap. It was wider than he liked, especially from a standing start. He thought he could manage it, but what about Tawnypelt? The ShadowClan warrior had started to limp again since they had started their climb, and even though she hadn't said anything, it was obvious the wound hadn't healed properly yet. Before he could voice his doubts, he heard Crowpaw mew. What are we waiting for? Are we going to stand around here until we grow wings? Without any more hesitation, the WindClan apprentice launched himself across the gap. For a heartbeat, his gray-black body seemed to hang in the air, as then he was across, landing lightly on the loose stone at the edge of the drop. Come on, he called. It's easy. Dang, bro. Way to flex. Catching Brambleclaw's eyes, Stormfur knew that the tabby warrior shared his annoyance that the apprentice hadn't waited for the rest of them to agree. Now they all had to try to leap, whether they wanted to or not, because Crowpaw would never manage to jump back on the narrow spur of the rock, and they could not leave him on his own over there. He was even less pleased when he saw Feathertail crouching at the edge of the rock, with the wind buffeting her fur. Crowpaw was waiting to steady her at the other side, and she waved her plumpy tail with pleasure as she realized that she had made it safely. The remaining cats bunched together on the rock. Stormfur's pelt prickled with fear as he felt the breeze grow stronger. Okay, who's next? Brambleclaw asked steadily. I'll go, Squirrelpaw meowed. See you over there. She pushed herself off off from the rock in a tremendous leap, landing a tail length from the edge on the other side. "She's quite something," Brambleclaw murmured, then looked confused, as if he hadn't meant to speak his thoughts out loud. "He certainly is," Stormfur agreed. Tawny Pelt, are you ready?" Brambleclaw asked, turning away. "Is your shoulder okay?" "I'll be fine," Tawny Pelt mewed grimly. She measured the distance with a glance and then took off. For one horrible instant, Stormfur thought she had jumped short. Her body slammed onto the edge of the rock and her front paws scrambled frantically for a grip among the loose stones. A heartbeat later, Feathertail was on one side of her and Squirrelpaw on the other, sinking their teeth into her neck fur and pulling her up the rest of the way. "Well done!" Brambleclaw called, his voice high-pitched from worry. Tawnypelt did not reply. Her tail had fluffed out with terror. Stormfur stopped Feathertail, coaxing her over to the stream and encouraging her to drink. "You next?" Brambleclaw asked Stormfur. "You go, I'm fine." But as Stormfur watched the strong tabby warrior leap the gap, he couldn't help wishing he hadn't waited to go last. He was just about to jump when Squirrelpaw shrieked, "Stormfur, look out!" At the same instant, a dark shadow fell over him, and he heard the beating of wings thudding through the air. Without pausing to look up, he launched himself across the gap, catching a glimpse of his friends on the other side scattering to the side of the valley. He hit the ground awkwardly, falling to one side, and froze with horror as he looked up to see an enormous bird swooping down on top of him, talons extended. A cat yowled his name, rolling away from the claws and stabbing beak. He felt the draft from the beating wings and smelled the reek of Karen. Karen? I don't even know what Karen is. Then he was aware of Brambleclaw and Feathertail hurling towards him, hissing and spitting with their fur standing on end. The bird veered to one side. Stormfur had a couple of heartbeats to scramble away. Then the talons hit the ground, throwing up spurts of dust. Karen means dead stuff. Oh! The bird let out a frustrated screech. Its wings beat strongly, carrying it up again. All three cats streaked into the shelter of a bush where Squirrelpaw and Tawnypelt were waiting. What in StarClan's name was that? Stormfur gasped, watching the bird climb higher until it was no more than a dot in the sky. Never seen such a big bird. An eagle. Crowpaw wormed his way under the lower branches to join them. We see them in WindClan territory now and again. They prey on lambs, but the elders say they've taken cats before. Another heartbeat, it would have taken me, Stormfur muttered. Thanks, both of you, he added to Brambleclaw and Feathertail. Feathertail shuddered. Imagine what would have happened if it had spotted us a bit earlier, when we were all stuck out on that rock. I don't want to imagine it, Squirrelpaw retorted. I think we need to take a break after that, Brambleclaw meowed. What about finding some prey? I scented rabbits out there. I'll go, Crowpaw offered. I don't need rest. Coming, Feathertail? Stormfur opened his mouth to object as his sister pushed her way out of the bush behind Crowpaw. In the end, all he said was, Watch out for that eagle! When they had gone, Tawnypelt closed her eyes with an exhausted sigh, and within a couple of heartbeats she was asleep. Stormfur curled up beside her, but he found it hard to rest. He could hear Brambleclaw and Squirrelpaw murmuring quietly together, and found he was straining his ears to make out what they were saying, envying their closeness and wishing, not for the first time, that Squirrelpaw was in his clan and not Brambleclaw's. He was worried about his sister, too, out there alone with that apprentice. They should keep moving while they could. If they delayed too long, darkness would overtake them and they would be forced to spend the night here. At last he drifted into an uneasy doze. A pod prodded him in the ribs, brought him back to consciousness. He blinked up into Squirrelpaw's green eyes, and his senses were flooded by the scent of rabbit. They're back, Squirrelpaw meowed. And they brought enough fresh gill for every cat. Of course, she added, her eyes glinting with amusement. I can eat yours if you don't want it. Don't you dare, Stormfur growled, flicking her ear with his tail as he scrambled up. Crouching over his share of rabbit, he saw Feathertail and Crowpaw sitting close together as they ate. He suppressed a growl as he wondered yet again how Feathertail could possibly forget what happened when cats from different clans tried to be together. Once all the journeying cats were relaxed with full bellies, he managed to edge his sister away from the rest. Listen, Feathertail, about Crowpaw, he murmured. What about Crowpaw? Feathertail's blue eyes flashed, and her voice was uncharacteristically sharp. You others are so unfair to him. Stormfur wanted to point out that the young cat asked for trouble with the way he argued about everything, but he had enough sense not to say so to Feathertail. That's not the point. That's not the point, he mewed. What's gonna happen when we get back home? Crowpaw's in a different clan. We don't even know if there will be clans anymore, Feathertail pointed out. We'll be leaving the forest, remember? Stormfur snorted. Do you think that the clan boundaries will vanish just because we have to leave? I doubt it. He was surprised by the flash of anger in Feathertail's eyes. Have you forgotten already what Midnight said? She spat. The clans won't survive if they can't work together. Have you forgotten what happens when cats from different clans get together? Stormfur growled. Look at the way our own father has been torn between two clans. You and I nearly died because we're half-clan. Tigerstar would have killed us if the ThunderClan cats hadn't rescued us. But Tigerstar's gone now, Feathertail mewed stubbornly. There won't be another cat like that in the forest. And Midnight said that all the clans will have to find somewhere else to live. Everything will be different. But you and Crowpaw... I'm not going to talk about me and Crowpaw. Feathertail's anger died. I'm sorry, Stormfur, but this doesn't have anything to do with you. Stormfur started to deliver a stingy reply, then realized she was right. Awkwardly, he stroked her shoulder with the tip of his tail. Worry about you, that's all. Feathertail gave his ear a quick lick. I know, but there's no need, really. Even though he did not agree with her, Stormfur said nothing. She was his sister, and he would do anything to make her happy. He wished Crowpaw could make her happy too, if that was what Feathertail really wanted. But he couldn't believe that all the rivalry between the clans would vanish, whatever happened, and let them be together. When the cats emerged from the shelter of the bush to continue their journey, they saw that the sky had grown darker. The wind had dropped, but there was a chill in the air, and clouds surged around the mountaintop, hiding the sun. Rain is on its way, Tiny Puck commented. That's all we need. Then we'll push on while we can, meowed Brambleclaw. They set off up the rift in the side of the mountain, keeping close to the sides and making use of what they could of the cover from bushes, in case the eagle returned. Stormfur kept an eye on the sky. Once he saw a tiny dot drifting lazily above the mountainside, and he knew that the fierce bird was still on their watch. They passed the source of the tiny stream, bubbling up from a crack between two rocks, and took a last drink before they pressed on. Stormfur gazed up at the slope ahead, scanning it for something familiar that would show him the next source of food or shelter, but saw nothing but lifeless gray rock. The valley grew narrower, and there was even less vegetation. Stormfur felt uncomfortably exposed, but the eagle did not return. As twilight gathered, a thin, cold rain began to fall. The cat's fur was soon soaked. There was nowhere to shelter. We've got to stop soon, Squirrelpaw announced loudly. My paws are falling off. Well, we can't stop here. Brambleclaw sounded irritable. We need to get out of the rain. No, Squirrelpaw's right, Stormfur ejected, facing up to the ThunderClan warrior. We can't go in the dark. We risk falling. Brambleclaw's neck fur rose, and he fixed Stormfur with a furious glare. Behind him, Stormfur heard a faint murmur of distress from Feathertail. He realized that they were within a couple of heartbeats from fighting amongst themselves. His growing respect for the ThunderClan cat meant that a fight was the last thing he wanted, but he could not back down and let Brambleclaw lead them on to slip over some precipice in the darkness. Then he saw Brambleclaw's fur begin to lie flat again, as the tabby seemed to understand Stormfur's concern. You're right, Stormfur. Let's shelter under a rock over there. It's better than nothing. He led the way to an overhanging rock, open on one side to the wind and rain that grew heavier still as the cat settled down, huddled together in an attempt to keep warm and dry. Shelter? Crowpaw muttered. This is shelter, then I'm a hedgehog. Just as prickly, Stormfur thought. But he kept the words to himself. That night he slept only in brief, uncomfortable snatches, and whenever he woke, he could feel his friends shifting uneasily around him. When at last the darkness began to lift, he heaved himself to his paws, feeling stiff and bleary-eyed, and peered out to the overhang to see dense white mist swirling around them. We must be in the clouds, Brambleclaw murmured, coming to join him. I hope it lifts soon. You think we should go on? Stormfur asked hesitantly, wanting to avoid another confrontation with the ThunderClan cat. We can't see where we're going. We could walk straight over a cliff. We manage when the mist comes down on the moors, Crowpaw pointed out, yawning as he staggered to his paws. Then he added doubtfully, but we know our territory by scent as well as sight. What about the fresh kill? Squirrelpaw mewed. There's no rabbit scent up here. I'm starving. Stormfur tried to ignore his own growling belly while Brambleclaw ventured out of their shelter and stood looking upwards. I can see for a few fox lengths, he reported. This cleft seems to go on and on. I think we'll be safe if we follow it. He glanced at Stormfur as he spoke, a questioning look in his eyes, as if he regretted their recent argument and wanted to make sure that the RiverClan cat agreed with him. Stormfur stepped out to join him, shivering as the mist began to soak into its fur. Okay, he meowed. Lead the way. It's not like we have much of a choice. Reluctantly, the other cats followed Brambleclaw out into the cold, clinging mist and padded after him up the rift. Stormfur noticed that Tawnypelt was limping worse today, as if her leg had stiffened in the night. Midnight's burdock root had cured the infection, but Stormfur suspected that her muscles had been damaged. She needed a medicine cat to look at it, but that was impossible out here. Daylight gradually grew stronger, and the swirls of cloud became paler, as if somewhere above them the sun was rising. The rift grew steadily narrower, with walls of rock closing in on either side. I hope it isn't a dead end, Feathertail mewed. We can't go back on that ledge. She had hardly spoken when the clouds began to thin out, and the cats could see further ahead. Stormfur found himself staring up at a sheer rock face where the sides of the valley came to a point. There didn't seem to be any way of climbing up, not unless they all grew wings and flew. His fur was plastered to his body by the mist, and he felt hollow with hunger. Now what? Tawnypelt meowed, sounding as defeated as Stormfur felt. The 6 cats stood looking upwards, a fine rain drifting around them as if the drops were light enough to be blown by the wind. Stormfur struggled to back with black despair. What was the point of all this? Even if they reached home, the forest was going to be destroyed. Their hopes of helping the clans rested on the word of a badger, a creature whom the cats had always regarded as an enemy. Stuck here among rain-wet rocks, it was hard to remember his trust in Midnight's wisdom. And if Stormfur had doubted her, what would his clanmates say when he tried to pass her message on? They had never completely trusted him or Feathertail because of their half-clan heritage, so why should they listen now? Then Stormfur realized that he could hear a steady roaring sound. It reminded him of the river pouring through the ravine in his home territory. What's that? He meowed, lifting his head. Can you hear it? Over here, I think, Brambleclaw called. Stormfur followed him up to the valley's point and discovered a split in the rock winding upwards, just wide enough for one cat at a time. Brambleclaw led the way through it, gesturing with his tail for the others to follow. Stormfur waited to bring up the rear, his fur brushing the rock on either side, with unpleasant thoughts going through his head on what would happen if the path became so narrow that they got stuck. The roaring grew louder, and after a little while the path came out into an open ledge. Broken rocks laid in front of them, rising to a ridge above their heads. A stream poured over the ridge, foaming down past the place where the cats were standing until it vanished behind a jutting boulder. Hey, at least we can have a drink, Squirrelpaw mewed. Be careful, Brambleclaw warned her. One slip and you'll be crow food. Squirrelpaw shot him a glare but said nothing. She crept forward cautiously to the edge of the stream and crouched to lap. Stormfur and the other cats followed her. The water was ice cold, refreshing Stormfur and giving him new courage. Perhaps their scumble over these hostile mountains would soon be over. Raising to his paws again, he glanced downstream and froze in shock. Just below where the cats were drinking, the rocks fell away into a precipice. Padding wearily a few paces towards it, Stormfur stretched his neck to peer over the edge, and saw the stream pounding down into a waterfall until it crashed into a pool many tail lengths below. The sound of thundering water filled his ears, making him dizzy, so that he instinctively tried to dig his claws into the rain-wet rock. The rest of the cats gathered around him, their eyes wide and horrified. Awesome! Squirrelpaw murmured. Peering over, she added, There's prey down there, I bet. Through the mist of spray that rose from the pool, Stormfur caught a glimpse of another valley like the one they had just left, where grass grew up between broken rocks and bushes lined the rock walls. Squirrelpaw was right. If there were any living things to be found here, it would be down there. But we need to go up, Brambleclaw pointed out, flicking his ears towards the place far above their heads where the stream poured over the lip of the rock. It doesn't look too difficult to climb. If we go down, we might never get back again. Big deal if it meant we get something to eat, Squirrelpaw muttered, but so softly that Stormfur wondered if her clanmate had heard. With Brambleclaw in the lead again, they began the scramble upward. They were all exhausted, their soaked fur making them clumsy. Tawnypelt in particular found the going tough, hauling herself painfully over every rock as if she had hardly any strength left. The stream bubbled up beside them, splashing over the rocks that were already wet and slippery with rain, which was falling more heavily again. Stormfur kept a weary eye on the stream, half expecting it to overflow and sweep them off the rocks. He stayed to the back of the group, trying to watch every cat, well aware that if any of them slipped, they could wash into the pool below the waterfall. Almost as soon as the thought crossed his mind, he saw Feathertail's paws skid from under her. She slid sideways into the stream. Water surged around her as she clung onto the rocks by a single paw, her jaw wide in a silent wail of shock. Stormfur bounded towards her, pushing past Tawnypelt, but before he reached her, Crowpaw had leaned out precariously over the foaming water, sunk his teeth into the scruff of Feathertail's neck, and dragged her back onto the path. "You, Crowpaw," she gasped. Stormfur saw with annoyance that her blue eyes were glowing with gratitude, and something more. "You should be more careful," Crowpaw meowed gruffly. "You think you're a clan leader with 9 lives to throw away? I saved you this once. Don't make me save you again." "I won't." Feathertail blinked and pressed her nose against Crowpaw's muzzle. "I'm sorry for not watching out." "You should be," Stormfur snapped, not sure whether he was more annoyed by his sister's carelessness or by the fact that Crowpaw had been the one to save her. He shouldered the apprentice away so that he could examine Feathertail more closely. "You okay?" "Yes, fine," Feathertail replied, trying to shake water from her fur. A louder rumbling from further up the mountain interrupted her, drowning even the roar of the waterfall below. Stormfur looked up and froze in horror at the sight of a wall of mud, branches, and water hurling down towards them. His worst fears had come true. The mountain stream was in flood. Squirrelpaw had let out a terrified yowl, and Brambleclaw sprang back towards her. But the water was up upon them before they could do anything. It struck Stormfur like a blow, carrying him off his paws. His legs flailed as the flood carried him down, driving him against the rocks where he clawed in vain for a grip before the water swept him on again. He choked as water filled his mouth, and one of his paws caught painfully against a rock. Then there was nothing beneath them at all, and he knew he was plunging over the waterfall. There was a moment of eerie silence, broken by the whisper of rushing water. Then the roaring and pounding started up again, waiting to swallow him as he plummeted into the pool, whirled around in icy water. He caught a brief glimpse of Crowpaw floundering wildly before the surge closed over his head. Then more water crashed down onto him, driving him under and filling his senses with churning white foam, a deafening roar, and then nothing. "So sorry, StarClan," Stormfur thought desperately, as his senses faded. "I know it wasn't my mission. I tried so hard. Please look after our clans." Chapter 6. And we're gonna stop for today. The next chapter would be in Leafpaw's POV anyways, so we wouldn't have even known what happened to them. But we're page 97 today, so I'm thinking all these books seem to be 300 pages long around, so if I best cliffhanger, they just got washed over a cliff. I'll be able to read, I think, 100 pages each stream, so we'll be able to get through each book in 3 weeks. That would be good. Very, very nice. Yeah, that was a good. I like this book. I feel like Midnight was a little slow, and I don't know. I remember not liking Midnight, and I can see why I didn't really like Midnight. It isn't a very good start to a series, in my opinion. I was driven on by loyalty to the series, I'm guessing, when I was young and even now. But this one's picking up faster. It's like they have more sense of like the cats. The cats are closer. There's more drama between them now because we know that, you know, they're close. And, you know, Crowpaw and Feathertail are now getting a little closer. And Stormfur has an unrequited crush on Squirrelpaw, and he is jealous of Brambleclaw. You know how it is. Drama. Love drama. It's the good stuff. They're getting cozy. They're cozying up together. It's kind of cute. All right. That was exciting. There was lots of descriptions too, and usually I'm not a fan of them, but they were really nice descriptions. If you guys didn't know, Aaron Hunter is actually 3 different authors, and I feel like as an adult reading these, I can tell when the author is writing, like a different author is writing, you know? There are certain sentences, the way that the sentences flow in certain authors, just, my brain doesn't wrap around it as well. They have words that they prefer, and, you know, and then they use them a lot more often than other chapters when another author is writing it. It's interesting. It's interesting. Like, dang, Bracken. I don't even know. Alright, let's raid somebody then. Let's raid somebody. Who the heck is Ruru? Oh, I like Ruru. Okay, Ori's streaming too, though. Miho drew a... No, that's not a slug cat. I thought it was a slug cat, but it wasn't a slug cat. Oh my god, Yuki is streaming! I haven't seen Yuki in 18 bazillion years! Oh my god, let's raid Yuki. Alright, guys. I'll see you on Friday for our very exciting stream. The surprise collab. I'm not sure, depending on how late that stream is gonna be, I might stream something else in the daytime and then come back and do the collab. But we'll see. We'll see. Yay, Pop Cup Raid! I'm going to go turn on all the fans in my room because it's very hot in here. Okay, guys. I love you. Thank you for hanging out with me today. If it's night for you, now's your time to go to bed. Succumb to the sleepiness that may have been washed over you while I was reading. If it's day for you, maybe take a nap. I don't know. Maybe it's one of those days. Maybe it's one of those days. I'll see you guys on the flip side. So happy I could make it this week. Thanks for the great stream. Thank you for being here. It's so fun reading these with you, Ven, because we both know like what's happening, like what's going to be happening, and we're like, okay, the raid's starting now. Bye, guys. I love you. Remember, moderation is the key to true happiness.